Good afternoon. This video is going to show viewers how to draw a foundation section view in AutoCAD. Okay, and this section view is going to be in elevation, so we're going to be basically taking a cut of it right here with this section symbol, and then we're going to be flipping it up to where we're looking at the side of it in the direction that this symbol is pointing, which is this way. Okay. This is a monolithic slab foundation, meaning it's all poured as one pour. You know, mono meaning one, and lithic meaning rock or stone. And of course, this is man-made stone, being that it's concrete. All right, so this symbol here indicates, that there is a cutaway here in another drawing that kind of represents this view from the side. And in this symbol, of course, you would know how to find it or find that drawing in a set of plans, because right here would be a page number on the top of the circle and then a drawing number down at the bottom of the circle. Okay, so that would direct you to exactly where to find this in the set of plans. But we're not worried about that right now because we are not working with a set of plans, but that is just part of learning how to draw one. All right, so I'm going to kind of zoom in right over here, and I'm going to do my drawing right here in this section. I'm going to first change my scale. It's down here at the bottom of the screen. Change my scale to 1.5 equals 1 right here. 1.5 inches equals 1 foot. All right, and that's basically just my annotation scale. So everything I draw on this detail is going to be based on that annotation scale. When I get done drawing the detail, and if I get all my annotations done, I want to change that annotation scale back to normal for the rest of my drawing over here on the left, the rest of the foundation and everything like that. Okay, so the first thing I do when drawing, this side view of the foundation, actually let me go ahead and get a picture of this from Google to kind of show you what we're going to be drawing. Okay, so basically something kind of like this, a little bit more in detail. This is just sort of a cartoonish type of drawing. Here's actually something a little bit closer to what we're going to be doing in this picture right here. So just follow along and, feel free to stop, pause, rewind, forward wind, whatever it is that you need to do to get to the segment of the video or to slow down a segment of the video. Now, of course, in YouTube, this will be posted in YouTube. You can go to the settings on the video in YouTube, just kind of show you what that looks like real quick. So let's pull open a YouTube window. Okay, so let's say I'm going to watch, one of these videos. I don't know, this one right here, Ingenious Inventions That You Should See. So let's say I'm going to watch one of these videos and get some instruction from it. There is a little setting icon, which is right here. I'm going to take a video. Pause that. Okay, so right here you can click on that setting. Boy, this computer's running really slow. Okay, well, I don't know what it's going to do. It didn't pop up anywhere, but there is a setting on there. But you click on that setting, and you can actually change the speed of the video, and you can also change the quality of the video. I would change it to the highest quality possible. Okay, but just wanted to kind of show you where that was. And we're going to get started on drawing this. Okay, I'm going to keep that window because I'm going to show you a few things as we go along. So to start with, we're going to draw the concrete section that we're looking at right here. So we have a kind of a footing, which we really just call it a thickened edge. That's between that solid line and that dashed line. So when we're doing a monolithic foundation, we just call that a thickened edge, but it's a footing pretty much. And we're going to start by drawing that piece, and then we're going to draw a little bit of the slab itself. So I'm going to start, I'm just going to draw a straight line, and I just throw 24 inches in there. Whoops, it should not be crooked like that. But I just throw the measurement of 24 inches in there just to make sure I have enough for what I need. Okay, once I draw that vertical 24-inch line, I'm going to continue drawing. I've got my cursor still attached to the line tool. I'm going to draw over here to the right 12 inches. Okay, now I'm going to draw that angle. Okay, and I'm locking it in at 45 degrees. I'm just drawing the angle at 45 degrees. I think people sometimes draw them at different angles, but we're going to stick with 45 degrees. And I'm just going to draw this line, you know, continuously up here. I don't know where I want to stop it yet. I don't know what the length of it's going to be yet, because I have to find an intersecting point. Now, if you're not locking in at 45 or snapping to 45 degrees like I am doing right here, you can come down to the bottom. There is this little tool right here. It's called Restrict Cursor to Specific Angles. And I'm going to click the little drop down arrow next to that to get this menu and set it for 45, 90, 135, 180. Okay, that's typically what I always use. So you might want to get used to just, you know, setting it to that when you first open up a drawing if you're following me on anything. Okay, so just click anywhere in the screen to get that menu to go away. And then draw up at 45 degrees and click and leave it right there. Start the line tool again. I just hit the enter button to start the line tool again. Okay, and draw over 12 inches and then up until you cross that line, that angled line. Okay, and click, and there you've placed it. Okay, so this line here is just being drawn to help me place that intersection right there. Okay, I'm going to come right here to that intersection and draw a straight line, no particular distance, just long enough for my my actual view that I'm going to be drawing, my detail. So probably somewhere around 4 or 5 feet will be fine. Okay, now I'm going to go to the trim tool up here at the top in the modify panel. I'm going to click on trim and trim some of these excess lines out of the way. Okay, so now it's starting to look more like that picture you saw on Google. I'm going to hit the escape button to get out of that trim tool. I'm going to offset this line. Okay, using the offset tool right here in the modify panel bottom right. Bring my cursor into the screen, and I'm going to type 4 inches because that's how far I want to offset that line. Okay, and then just click on that here, and it's offset 4 inches. I'm going to hit the trim tool again right up here in the modify panel. I'm going to hold down the shift button because I don't want to trim, I want to extend actually. And you can do that when you're in the trim tool. You can hold down the shift button and you'll get an extend command. And then release it, you can go back to trim and then trim out that little excess piece of line right there. Okay, next I'm going to focus on this section and I'm going to draw the brick ledge. Brick ledges of various lengths and types and everything like that. Depending on the type of block you're using or the type of brick you're using, you'll have different types of or different ways of doing the brick ledge. I'm going to do one. It's going to be, now I have to add up the thicknesses of my material because in this brick ledge, it's going to be right here. It's going to be like a corner cutout. I've got to fit my bricks, I've got to fit my airspace, and I've got to fit my sheathing down in there. Okay, so that's 3 items. The brick, I'm just going to go with a round number of 4 inches wide. Okay, so my brick is 4 inches wide. And then my airspace is going to be 1 inch. Okay, I'm specifying a 1 inch airspace on this brick wall. And then my sheathing, a lot of people use 1/2 inch sheathing, but I'm going to use 3/4. So I've got that 4 inch brick, 1 inch airspace. That's 5 inches plus 3/4 of an inch. That is 5 3/4 inches. So I'm going to hover right down here with my cursor, and I'm not going to click on anything. I'm just going to hover and activate that point of geometry and pull my cursor to the right, and you can see that dashed green line kind of following it there. And what that means is I can type in like 5.75 inches, enter, and that line basically starts drawing at 5.75 inches or 5 3/4 inches from that corner. Okay, I'm going to draw it down just 5 inches. Okay, it might be a little bit of overkill, but oh well. And then draw it over to the left all the way until it meets with that wall right there, or that line. Okay, that line right there. Okay, now I don't need these 2 lines, so I'm going to go back to my trim tool and just trim those out. Okay, so that is the brick ledge right there. Now I'm going to start drawing my wall. And my wall is going to fit right at the edge, or at least the core material of my wall is going to fit right at the very edge of this brick ledge. So I'm just going to get a straight line, click here, draw up. I'm not drawing any particular distance, I'm just drawing up. And then come to about 4, maybe 2 or 3 feet or something like that, and that'll be fine. And I want to offset this line because what this is representing the core material of my wall, the 2x4 lumber that my wall is made out of. Remember this because your life depends on it. A 2x4 is not 2 inches by 4 inches. It is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Okay, now according to the wall that I'm going to be putting here, I'm going to look for a wall frame on Google, go to images, and maybe I need to put framing, I-N-G. Here we go. That's more like what we're looking at. Okay, so you can see here there's all kinds of walls. Here's an actual picture of a wall with the 2x4s as your studs being these long pieces that hold the wall up, that prop it up all together. Okay, so what we're going to be drawing is we're going to be drawing one of these from the side, and we're going to be drawing one of these too. This is called the sill plate, or the sole plate. Sole plate, sill plate, bottom sill, floor sill, you name it. It's got several different names to it. When I say sill, I'm talking about S-I-L-L sill. Okay, not S-E-L-L or S-E-L seal. Although S-E-L is what it actually does, but we call it a sill, S-I-L-L. Okay, so we're going to be drawing that from the side view. So just imagine, let's see, let's look up a 2x4. So what I'm interested in here on this 2x4 is I'm interested in drawing this dimension, this widest dimension, which is 3.5 inches. Now remember, your life depends on remembering that. So it's 3.5 inches. Okay. Not really. I'm just trying to get you to take that a little bit more seriously. Nothing's going to happen to you except you'll miss that question on the test if you don't remember. Okay, so I want to offset this 3.5 inches. So I'm going to go to the offset tool. Okay, 3.5 inches. Okay, and now I've offset that. Okay, so that is the stud. That is the vertical stud that props the wall up. Now I'm going to put that sill plate right down here at the bottom. So the dimension I'm interested in there is the skinnier dimension. That's going to be 1.5 inches. Okay, so let's go back here. We're going to draw a line, start here, and we're going to move up. And I'm just activating that. I'm not clicking on anything. I'm activating that geometry so that little dashed green line follows me. And I can type in 1.5 inches. And then that line starts at 1.5 inches from that little corner right there. I'm going to draw this all the way across, and then I'm going to put an X in it, like so. Doesn't matter if your lines overlap in this particular drawing. Okay, so there you have the sill plate. Okay, now I'm going to start. I want to secure this wall to the floor system here, or the slab, to this concrete slab. So I'm going to put an anchor bolt in here. Now it is specified that I have an anchor bolt that is 1/2, okay, just 1/2 with a little inch symbol out to the side. That's 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch in diameter, 10 inches long. And it has to be sunk into the concrete 7 inches. So you're going to have 7 inches are buried in the concrete, 3 inches are going to be exposed above the concrete. So how do I draw that, and how do I get it in the center of this sill plate? Okay, this is how you get it in the center. You start with a line, and you just go right up here to this cross section, and you're just activating the geometry as a reference point, and you're going to pull your cursor down. And then right here, when you get to the top of the concrete slab, that's when you're going to click on your mouse and draw the line 7 inches into the concrete. All right, so you got that line 7 inches into the concrete. Now you're going to go to your arc tool, and you're going to put an arc at the end of it here. Now, don't try to draw the arc with the cursor, okay? AutoCAD doesn't draw that way. So just pull it out to the side about 2 inches, maybe slightly over 2 inches, okay? And then there's your arc. If you get stuck doing this right here, that's fine. Okay, you can find your arc. You know, you don't want an arc like this. You can find your arc simply by pulling your cursor straight up and going like that. Okay, so follow your cursor, don't follow the arc itself. When your arc comes to a point where it is tangent with the line itself, then you can click and place it. And that thing keeps falling off. I don't know if you hear that clicking around or not. All right. So the top, I'm not finished with it. The top of it, I want to click on that straight line, and I want to click on this grip at the very top of that straight line and extend it that additional 3 inches. So I'm going to type in 3 inches to extend it, and there it is, 3 inches. Now, as I said, this bolt has to be a ½ inch, half of an inch in diameter. So I'm going to do an offset. I've got it in the center. That's why when I do my offset, I'm going to offset it to each side. To each side, 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch each way is going to equal ½ of an inch. All right, so I'm going to go to the offset tool, click on it, bring my cursor into the screen, and type 1/4 inch, or you can type 0.25, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to offset to the left, offset to the right. Go down here to my arc, offset it up, offset this part down. Okay, now I can get rid of the center line by deleting it entirely. Now you can see I've got my bolt that is perfectly centered on that seal. I'm going to cap the top with a line. Okay, that's capping. And I'm going to cap the bottom also with a line. We have to cap it if we want to put a pattern in it. We're going to put a pattern in it in just a while. Okay. So what else do I need to do? Okay, I need to put a washer on there. So my specifications call for a 2-inch washer. What is a washer? Well, a washer is one of these flat pieces of metal that basically just kind of helps to keep the bolt and the nut from sucking through the wood. Okay, so if you tighten that bolt down or tighten the nut down on the bolt that's on top of that seal, it's just going to keep tightening until it pulls all the way through the wood, and you just, and it's not going to be any good. Also, if your walls receive a lateral force of any kind, so from the wind, then it won't be as strong because the wind can actually just rip that wall right up off of that little nut and bolt if you don't have a washer. Okay, the washer is just going to add more space or more area to the surface that's holding that seal plate down. We're actually going to use a 2-inch washer, and that would be listed in our specifications. As we were doing some annotations earlier, we'll do that annotation here as well. Okay, so I want to draw that washer. Now, this is more or less representing that washer symbolically. So not all of it's going to be exactly the right size, but just so that it can be seen, that's what I'm interested in. I want it to be seen. Okay, so I'm going to click here in the center. I'm going to draw upwards. I'm drawing a line upwards, and I'm going to draw it 1/8 of an inch. Okay, you can see right now I've got it. I've pulled it up, and it's already 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to click there. Well, I was going to click there, right there. Now I'm going to pull it over to the left. I'm going to pull it over 1 inch. I'm going to just type 1 inch into dynamic input, and it goes 1 inch over to the side. Now I'm going to draw it back down to the top of the seal. Okay, so this is what I end up with. I'm going to mirror these 2 lines to the other side over here. So I select those 2 lines with like a little selection window, and then I click on the mirror tool, which is up here in the modify panel. Mirror. And then I'm going to choose this as my axis point, and I'm just going to click at the bottom of that line and draw upwards. Again, don't try to draw with the cursor, okay? Just pull the cursor up, and it's going to put that the other half of that washer in place, okay? Make sure you select no for erase source objects, because you don't want to erase this one over here. So that is our washer, okay? And again, of course, I drew it at 1/8 of an inch thick. It's probably not quite that thick, but I want it to be seen in this drawing. So that's why I drew it a little thicker. But again, it is more or less symbolic in this application. Now I'm going to draw the nut. Same thing. Not all of the nut is going to be the correct size. It's mainly just a nut. And it's symbolic. Okay, so I'm going to start here in the center. I'm going to draw up 0.75 inches. And then I'm going to draw over to the left a half of an inch, so 0.5 of an inch. And then I'm going to pull that all the way down to right here. Okay, so what that's going to look like, what I'm talking about here as far as the nut that's going to go on top of that washer, okay, is one of these things here, one of these metal objects. It's got threads on the inside. You screw it over the bolt, tighten it down, and that secures the wall. All right, so I've got half of it drawn. I'm going to select half of it over here on the left. I'm going to select the mirror tool. I'm going to use that line, that center line right there is my axis point, and then move it over, or, you know, draw upwards and click no. There's my nut. Okay, so next thing I want to do is I want to put a pattern in here. But before I do so, I need to check out a couple of my line intersections, primarily right here. You see a gap right here, so a gap is going to mess it up, and I won't be able to put a pattern in it if there is a gap. So I'm going to select one of those lines and then select its endpoint, and then match that endpoint with the endpoint of the line across from it. Over here you got an overlap. Now I'm not sure how AutoCAD's going to treat the overlap when you try to put a pattern in here, so I'm going to go ahead and fix it while I'm here, and if you look real close you can see it's an overlap. So I'm going to pick one of the lines, click on its little endpoint there, and drag it down to the other endpoint to where it matches directly up with that endpoint. Now I can start putting a pattern in here. Because this drawing is going to be rather small, I typically would use just a plain white pattern, but you could also use the steel pattern, a pattern that represents steel. And that is going to be kind of a double line up diagonal, or diagonal up situation. So I'll show you the two available. So if I go to my hatch tool, typically I would just use solid, so it would all be solid. But you can also use ANSI 32, which is what we use to represent steel. And I do apologize because I told someone earlier that the ANSI 1 represented steel, but it really represents brick. My fault. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of place all this in here, all the open spaces, zoom in to get all the open spaces, get all that hatched. This one doesn't want to hatch, or maybe it is hatched and I just can't see it. Okay, so that gets it all hatched up using steel to represent it. You can make it look a little better too if you delete some of these lines in here. And that's why I just, you know, typically I didn't delete them this time, because I typically just use the solid. So if you use the solid, you just go over here and boom, click on the solid. Actually, I think I can change all of that. There we go. So now it's all solid. So that's what I typically do. And I don't have to delete any of the lines that are in there to make it look prettier. Okay. But this is acceptable in some instances, and this is one of those instances where it is acceptable. Okay, otherwise, if you were using something larger that was steel, you'd probably want to use the ANSI 32 to represent steel material. Okay, so we've got our anchor bolt. It's anchoring the wall down, and you can see how this washer adds additional surface area to this nut to help hold it down, help hold this seal down to the concrete. Now I'm going to start working on some other things that some of them which are more or less, you know, just for visual reference. And the first part is going to be the interior of the wall, which is on this side where I'm circling my cursor. That is the inside of the house. So I'm going to do an offset for my drywall. Drywall is that chalky substance that is on the inside of your house, and it's on all the walls. It's kind of what you push tacks into and stuff when you push a tack into hang up a poster or what have you. But I'm going to offset this line a half of an inch, because that is the typical thickness of drywall that we use on most any application. So using the offset tool, I'm going to offset 1/2 inch. Okay, and click on that line, drag it over to the right. Use the line tool to cap off the very top. Okay, just like so. And now I'm also going to hatch this. I need to put a pattern inside of it to represent its material, which is gypsum, okay? Now, drywall is what we call it. We also call it sheetrock. We also call it gypsum wallboard. We call it wallboard. We call it several different things. But if you hear any of those terms, that's what they're talking about, is gypsum plaster wallboard, which is the material inside of it is gypsum. And then, of course, there's paper on both sides of it. And the paper and the gypsum are all, put into a mold, and they're squished together with a type of glue, I guess, and pressure, which all makes it like a solid sheet. So I'm going to hatch this with a hatch. I'm going to use the hatch called sand. So I'm looking for sand, and I'm going to place it right inside of the wall. And you can see that you can barely see the little specks in there that represent sand. That's because I need to change the scale to make that look a little more like gypsum plaster. The scale is changed right up here. This is how you change the scale. And I'm going to type 0.25 in there and hit enter. Now you can see how the little sparkles in there are a little bit tighter, so it looks more like gypsum wallboard. Okay. Now, sometimes when you place these hatchings, you get some errors and things like that on the screen, especially if you're zoomed in really close and you try to hatch like that. The first thing you want to do, if it's not too small of an object, is zoom out to where you get the entire area that's going to be hatched, and then try to hatch it in there. Sometimes AutoCAD thinks that there's an opening between the lines when there really isn't. So you have to kind of play with it. You might even have to go in and investigate some of these areas that it says might be open, and then make sure that it is actually attached to the line so it makes a full, complete loop. All right. So we've got our gypsum wallboard on the inside. Now we're going to work on the outside. So the next layer we're going to have here on the outside is going to be our plywood sheathing. There's two different materials used for plywood sheathing. One is called OSB. It is oriented stranded board is what that stands for. This is what the material looks like right here. It's just a whole bunch of wood chips, leftover wood chips that are put together in a mold with some glue and extreme heat, and they're pressed under immense pressure until it cures, until the glue cures, to make these oriented stranded board sheets. Okay. Now, of course, some people will argue that plywood is stronger. I'm one of those people. Okay, plywood is almost like this. It's actually made almost in the same way, but instead of little pieces of wood, it's actually sheets of wood, probably about, I guess, probably around a 1/16 of an inch or so, of plies, okay, different plies. So each layer is considered a ply. And of course, you can also see that some of those layers are not all the same width. But whatever it is, they're trying to make a piece of plywood that meets a certain specification as far as width is concerned. But you can see the different layers in there that are placed together, one on top of the other, and then it is pressed with glue under immense pressure and heat to make plywood. You've got different grades of plywood, some that look better than others, some that are strictly structural purpose. This one here has a really nice veneer on the top, so some of that would be used to do some really nice cabinet work or something like that. For sheathing, we would probably use a grade of plywood that would still have knots in it and things like that. We're not worried about what it looks like because it's going to be used to perform a function. Okay, the function that it performs is structural. So what it does is it helps hold up the wall. And I'll show you how they put this sheathing on. Okay, so I'm just going to look up sheathing, and you can see here this guy right here. Here's a bigger picture. He's hanging these 4x8 sheets of OSB onto the wall. And each one of these boards, these 2x4s, which are your wall studs, get about 4 nails per sheet. Okay, so you can see how this can help stabilize the wall and keep those 2x4s from leaning one direction or another. And we want to do that. We want to secure those boards because you might get something called racking on your wall. You need to remember what that is, racking. You need to know what everything I'm mentioning, sheathing, all that stuff you need to remember. Okay, but racking Okay, racking a wall frame. See if we get a good example of racking. Let's see. Racking of a wall. Okay, I don't really show a good rack to a wall. Okay, let's put racking of timbers. On a wall. I found some good pictures earlier. I don't know why I can't find them now. Here's a good one. This is an example. So pretend each one of these vertical lines is one of those boards that hold up the wall. And if the wall receives any kind of lateral force from this direction, okay, it could slant those 2x4s that are inside that wall, creating what we call racking. This is racking right here. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. We want to firm up those walls and give them some sturdy structure. Here's another good example of racking right here too. But we don't want that to happen. Yeah, we want our wall to stay stable and straight up and down to prevent racking. So that's why we put sheathing on it, either plywood or OSB. I'm going to use 3/4 inch plywood, either or OSB. They're both represented the same way. But I'm going to offset that line, this line right here. I'm going to offset that 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now some people use 1/2 inch, but I use 3/4 of an inch. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's also a little stronger. Now this line that represents my sheathing, I'm going to pull it down to the bottom of the brick ledge right there. I'm also going to come back and cap the top. I'm also going to take this line of the sheathing and I'm going to change its line thickness. All right, if you want to see your line thickness, you have to turn it on. So in order to turn it on, you want to come over here to the bottom right of your screen. There's these 3 lines right here that are horizontal, stacked on top of another. And if you click on that, it gives you a customization menu. And so I do need to turn that on. But anyway, what you're looking for is line weight right here, line weight. Make sure there is a check mark next to it because that means that it's down here, right here. So I'm going to turn on my line weight and I want this line to be a little thicker. Okay, and I'm going to make that line thicker by coming up here to my properties. Okay, this is my line properties. And I'm going to choose this little section here, this drop down that currently says bilayer. It has these other lines of different thicknesses that are stacked up right next to it to the left. And I'm going to choose 30 millimeters. Okay, why did I make that line 30 millimeters? The reason I made that line 30 millimeters is because, okay, I had to check something there. It's giving me a warning signal. But the reason I want that to be 30 millimeters is I just want it to be a little thicker to represent the not the sheathing, but the house wrap or vapor barrier that it is called. It's called house wrap or vapor barrier. And that is used to control the amount of vapor that is allowed inside of your house. It just keeps vapor from coming in and making the inside of your house all damp and whatever. All right, so that constrains the transfer of moisture. And what does house wrap look like? It looks kind of like this stuff right here. Okay, it's this stuff right here. It's a plastic sheet about 16 mils or so. You've probably seen houses that look like this one before they get the final finish in paint or brick or block or whatever they're getting. Here's another building, a big building with that same sheet on the side. And that's your moisture control. That's the purpose of your walls. Your purpose of your walls are more than just to help the building stand up, but it's also to control the outside elements such as moisture and hot air and things like that. We want to keep our house nice, dry, cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and that's one of the things that helps us do that. All right, so that is house wrap or vapor barrier. Okay, a couple of the different names that are used for that. So that's what that line represents. Now I need to do another offset. This one is going to separate my sheathing from my airspace. Anytime you build with stone, brick, or anything like that on the outside of the house, you have to have an airspace. And in this case, I'm using 1-inch airspace. That airspace allows some ventilation through the wall, and also when condensation builds up on the brick itself or the block itself, which it will, that condensation will drip down the inside of the wall, come down to the very bottom down here, and then come out through a weep hole. So if you go to your house, look around your brick house or any brick building, look down at the base near the foundation, you'll see these holes periodically placed in that brick. In those holes, that's for that moisture to drip out of. So to indicate that airspace, I'm going to offset this line. So I'm going to go to the offset tool, and my airspace is 1 inch. So I'll just type in 1 inch, click on this line, move it over. Okay, so it's offset now, and of course I want to click on it again and set its thickness back to the default, which is by layer. Okay. Now I'm almost done with my wall material. That is my airspace, as I said, but over here I've got bricks. All right, so I need to draw a line. I'm just going to draw a straight line with the line tool right here from this corner, straight up, match it up with the top of that line right there, and go ahead and cap it. I should have went ahead and capped it while I was there. Cap it off, and now we're going to put another hatching inside of it. So I'm going to go to my hatch tool right here, click on it, and drop down the whole palette, scroll through it, and I'm looking for one called, or no, I'm looking for this one, ANSI 31, which represents brick, or any type of masonry finish. So it could be brick, block, stone, whatever. All right, I'm going to place it right here in my wall. Now, of course, you can see that it has retained the scale that I set it for the gypsum wallboard, which is going to be too small of a scale for my brick. So I'm going to set the scale for my brick to something like 10. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, and that's what brick should look like. That is the symbol for brick. It doesn't look like actual bricks, but that's what we use. One other hatching that I need to do is right here on my plywood sheathing. So I'm going to go back to the hatch tool. I'm going to drop down the palette with all the hatches on it. Scroll down to one called Net 3. It's got to be Net 3 right here. Net 3. Come to the inside of that plywood, click. And yeah, the scale, I'm going to adjust it a little bit and make it 5. Okay, that looks a little better. Okay, so I've got all of that taken care of. The next one is actually, it's another kind of like a hatching, but it's really going to be more of a line style, okay, rather than a hatch. It's going to perform the function of a hatch. But let's go ahead, take this line, let's go ahead and cap this wall off right here just to give me a point to draw that to. And I'm going to go over here to my properties for my lines. I'm going to pull down this property menu, and I'm going to go all the way, let's see, where am I going to go? I think properties, no. I'm forgetting how to do this now. Maybe it's right here. It's right here. Click on this bottom drop down that says by layer. Okay, it's got the little different line styles out here to the left of it. I'm going to click on other. I'm looking for one called insulation. So I'm going to click on this load button right here to load up the library of lines. And I'm just going to scroll through it because I know what it looks like. Right here, it's called batting. Okay, batting. All right, so I'm going to select batting, click OK. And I'm going to just go ahead and click on current to make it the current line style. Click OK. Go to the line tool. I don't know if that took because I wasn't actually in the line style when I did that, or the line tool when I did that. But I can always go back and select batting so I can draw batting. Now you can start right here kind of at the center of your little bolt. Draw it up. As you see, it is too big. That is okay because we're going to change the properties of it. So I'm going to click on it like so. And then after I click on it and highlight the whole thing, I'm going to right click. And it's better to go to one of these grips and right click. and then go to Properties right here at the bottom of that menu. Okay, and you left click on the Properties word, and we're looking for line type scale right here, just like we would do in our hatching, except for we're not actually in a hatching tool. And because it's too big, I want to take it down to, right now it's 1. It's just like 1 to 1. So I'm going to take it down to 0.75, see if that fits. Still needs to go a little smaller, so I'm going to go down to 0.50. 0.50 fits in there pretty good. So I'm going to leave it at 0.50 right there. Okay, and I can close this window once I'm done with it. And there's our insulation. So we have insulation in our wall. Okay. Several other things we got to do. We're not finished yet. We've got a lot of stuff to do here to this. The next thing I'm going to do is draw a what's called a flashing. Okay, so it's a 16 gauge wall flashing. And what it is a flat piece of metal just like that, and it's bent just right so that we can actually channel any water. And here's a perfect example. So here's that flashing right here. What it does is it catches water that comes down the wall, or actually down the brick. It comes down the brick, goes down here, hits the top of that metal flashing, then comes out here and drips to the outside. And hey, look at there. There's a weep hole right there as well. Okay, so that's what our flashing is going to do. And this is how I draw a flashing. This is also how I would install them. Here's actually an example of how I draw them. So I know this is kind of blurry, but you see I have this little angle going on here. I don't really draw this part because it's going to be nailed to the wall up here. It's going to be more like one of these. Okay. So let's go back here to AutoCAD, and I'm going to start a line. I'm going to make this line thicker. I want to make it, I got to change it from batting though. I got to change it from batting back to bilayer and change the thickness to 30 millimeter. And I'm coming up about right here. So I got to activate this little bottom corner so I can pull it up here, click about right there somewhere, no specific distance. Draw it down to this corner, attach it to that corner, then draw it to the outside of the wall. And then bring it back down here, put about a 45-degree angle on it. And then a little switchback, also at a 45-degree angle. And there you go. There's your 16 gauge flashing that helps channel the water outside of the wall. Okay, got that done. Let's see, next thing we're going to do is hatch our concrete, because it has to be hatched too. And I think what I'm going to do is kind of cut this off a little bit. I'm going to draw these back to about right here. Okay, and then I'm going to cap it off. And of course I capped it off with a wide line, so I want to go back and change that to a regular bilayer line. Okay, and I also want to go ahead and change it for my default, because I don't want to leave it at that 30 millimeter. All right, go to my hatch tool right here. I'm looking for concrete. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way up to the top, just start up there, and here it is. AR-CONC is concrete. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to place that concrete right inside here, inside that foundation. And you can see it's already starting to create concrete, but the scale is too big. So I'm going to come back up here to my scale size, set that back to 1, and hit the enter button. That's more like what I'm looking for, but maybe, let's see what 0.5 looks like. Now I don't like 0.5, it's too small. Okay, 0.75 looks a little better. Okay, so you can see that pattern is like a bunch of triangles and dots. Sometimes it even has lines in it and stuff like that. So now we've got concrete. Now, let me think, do we have all the components? No, we do not. We also have to represent underneath, we have two things. Could have 3 things. We're just going to have 2 though. We're going to have some compacted gravel placed by humans underneath that slab. And that compacted gravel, before they lay the concrete, they of course tamp it down really tight on top of the soil. So the soil is the other thing we're going to have here. So to represent that compacted gravel, I'm just going to come right in here. Actually, let's do this. let's take this line. We're going to offset it 4 inches because we want 4 inches of compacted gravel. Right there. And I'm going to select it and extend it till it goes all the way over here. And then I'm going to cap it off right here. And I don't think there is a pattern. Let's look and see if there's a pattern for rocks, pebbles, things like that. Gravel, actually, is what we're looking for. Here it is, gravel. Okay. Gravel right there. Place it just like that. Okay, so that represents our gravel. All right, underneath of this is going to be earth. Okay, so now we're going to draw like a big swath of earth. We have to come over here and start. Now with brick walls, this is another building code. Okay, and you need to remember this. Your earth, the ground has to, there has to be at least 4 to 6 inches of exposed concrete above the ground before you actually get to your wall finish. At least that is the code here in Texas in most places. And because we have a brick wall, we're only required to have 4 inches of exposed exposed foundation before the earth begins. If you had wood siding or something like that, then it's 6 inches. But for bricks, it is 4 inches. So I'm going to start drawing, activating that corner point right there, and I'm going to pull my cursor down 4 inches, and I'm going to draw my earth. Okay, now this isn't going to be complete. I got to do something else to it. So I'm going to draw it out this way. And actually, go ahead and stretch that line out to where it's about 10 feet, because there's something we got to gauge here. Even though it's going way over here, you're going to cut some of this line off when you're done. Don't worry. So about 10 feet is good. It doesn't have to be exactly 10 feet, but a little bit over 10 feet is okay. What I have to have is a slope, because the earth has to slope 6 inches within 10 feet. Okay, that's how you have to grade the land around the house structure, or at least here in Texas. To get that 6 inches, so this line here is a little over 10 feet, which is cool. And I'm going to come right here to the point, and I'm going to pull that down 6 inches. Okay, and then I'm going to start another line, draw it from that point of that 6-inch line back up here, right there. That creates my slope. Okay. And as I said, we're going to cut some of this off. So I'm going to draw a line, because this line is going to end up being part of my box that goes around this drawing. And then I'm going to trim that piece of line out right there. Okay. So this is our ground. I'm going to finish drawing the earth. So I'm going to take this line, just stretch it a little bit further right down here, get another line, draw out to the right, draw it right to this point right here, and then draw it up to that point right there. Okay, go into our hatching right there, and we're looking for one called earth. And let's see. No, that ain't it. There it is right there. Earth, E-A-R-T-H. Put it right here, and as you can see, the scale is not large enough for the earth. I'm going to change that scale to about 10, and that's earth. Okay, so that represents the earth. This represents the sky. This is your foundation. This is our 4-inch exposed concrete before you get to the brick wall, which has all of your wall materials and everything else in it. All right, and so as far as drawing, this is complete. Now what I'm going to do is finish this, but I'm going to do it off screen, okay? Because what I'm going to, well, no, I probably should do some of it on screen. I take that back. So let's do some of the annotations on screen. And when I say some, we're going to do some of them, because I don't want you to have to sit here and watch me go through all these annotations, because all we're doing is placing text and writing text out. So what you could do is when I finish, you can actually copy my finished product. You'll know what to put on there as far as text is concerned by looking at mine. So let's do a little bit of text for now. Some of the things we want to kind of start down here at the bottom. And when it comes to annotating, our annotating must be absolutely neat and orderly. It can't be anything else. Okay, it has to be neat and orderly, because if you don't draw it neat and orderly and you got all this scribbly stuff going on everywhere, then whoever's looking at your drawings are going to think that you're a moron. All right, we don't want people to think we're a moron, because we're not morons. All right, we know how to make our text very neat and orderly. So I'm using a leader. Okay, and of course, one thing I have to do as well is I have to test my text size to see what everything is going to turn out to look like. First, let's go into this annotation drop down. Everything is currently set for standard. I'm going to set this for annotative. Annotative might be the perfect size. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to click on the leader tool and create a leader with some text. First thing I want to create is the information for this little area right down here. Okay, so I'm going to click an arrow. It's going to form at the end. See that arrow? And then I'm going to draw it out to about right here. No specific distance, just draw it out to about right there. I'm going to click, and then that establishes my text box where I can type in the stuff to describe this stuff down here. So this is make sure all caps is on. So turn on all caps. 2x4, that means 2 by 4. Let's see what weatherproof. There is I'm thinking of the initials that I need to put in here. That's very important. We have to have this. Okay, you can't just leave this all. Okay, Douglas fir, D period F period P period T period. Douglas fir pressure treated. Okay, 2 by 4 Douglas fir pressure treated with a 1/2 by, whoops, I do need an inch on that 1/2. Okay, actually I need a space there too. 1/2 inch space. Well, no, we don't need a space. X 10 inch A period B period anchor bolt. Okay, and then we're going to hit the enter button to go down to the next line with a, say, 1/2 inch by 10 inch anchor bolt, a 2. Okay, now I'm still working on the anchor bolt. So at 6 feet, O period C period. Okay, that stands for 6 feet on center. So it's going to be placed 6 feet on center. Every 6 feet, one of these is going to be placed. 7 inches into CONC, which stands for concrete, and then MIN period, which means minimum. And this is something that I hated that AutoCAD does. We got to get rid of that space there. Now I still need that at symbol. Okay, I might have to place it up here on the previous line. At space down. There we go. Okay, at 6 inch on center, 7 inches into concrete, minimum. And actually minimum should go right after 7 inch, minimum. Okay, with 2 inch washer. Okay, there we go. And it's probably, let's see, that text might be a little large. Maybe. Let's go with it. Okay. Now, the rest of the stuff I'm going to have you label just to practice doing your labeling, your annotations and things like that. So I'm going to do another leader. I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to label this drywall. So now if I want to label it, I want the arrow to go right here, but as you see, if I click, it's going to go down to this point down here. I don't want that. So I need to activate that geometry point and then pull it up with that little dotted line following me. Click, draw it at the same angle if you can, line it up with that elbow, Okay, and there you go. 1/2, whoops, 1/2 inch drywall. Now, of course, this will help you remember, or help you, learn your annotating, and it also helps you learn what all this stuff is, and that you remember what all this stuff is. Okay. Oops, I don't want to do that. And when you get through typing your text, you can just click anywhere in the field, and it will take you out of the text. Okay. Next one is going to be our insulation. Again, I'm getting this point that pops up, so I want to activate that point, come down here, and probably put my arrow about right there. Line it up with that elbow, make it about the same angle, click, and your text. This is going to be R14, which means R means resistance. 14 is the level of resistance. So it has a heat transfer resistance of 14, R14 batting. Batting is what it's called. This is stuff, it's like almost like a cloth, like cotton, but it's actually fiberglass. You don't want to ever play with it because it'll get you really itchy. R14 batting. Okay, so we've got that. Next thing we want to do is come over here, probably about right in here, and get the leader again. We want to describe our slab. So at about a 45-degree angle, click, and there's your text. Okay, so this is going to be a 4-inch CONC period slab with, we'll go down to the next line, 4-inch compacted gravel. Okay. So that gets our slab described. Now I want to also describe this thickened footing over here, so I'm going to do another leader for that. Now I could possibly put it all in here, but I don't want to. I want to do it like this. Okay. I keep losing my leader. There it is. All right, so here I'm going to describe the footing, the thickened edge. Okay, so this is going to be a 12-inch x 24-inch thickened. That's not how you spell thickened. About to put a C in there. Thickened edge with slash, go to the next line, a 5 3/4 inch. Nope, I need to do it the other way. I need to do 5x 5 space 3/4 inch brick ledge. Okay, and that should be enough. Click in the open space on the screen, and there it goes. Now here's something we can do, and I just noticed it did this, that it puts the hatching blends with the text. Okay, click on that hatching and delete it for now. We'll replace it in just a moment. All right. Okay, here we're going to indicate our flashing. Okay, 45-degree angle. Okay, so we're going to say 16 GUA GE flashing. And yeah, this kind of gauge is not spelled like that. Okay. All right, and we're going to label the other stuff just for good measure. Okay, this is going to be here, match up with that elbow. Okay, and this is, we'll just call it 4-inch common red brick. Okay. The next one we will do is going to be the airspace. So we'll indicate our airspace. Just come in here, and if you see any of those green squares popping up, try to get it to where none of them are popping up. Okay, you might have to come out here and click and just restart your leader. Come back inside here, Get it about right here. So as long as none of those green squares are popping up, you should be good to place that little arrow leader right there. Okay. Okay, line up the elbows of the leader. Click. And you call this 1-inch airspace. Okay. Whoops. All right, get another leader, and this one's going to go on the vapor barrier. We do have a little triangle popping up, so I want to drag it down to about right here and start my line. Match up this elbow. Okay, and that's going to be, let's see, I think this is 12 mil. I'm not exactly 100% sure, so it's 0.012 vapor barrier. Okay, and then we've got here, we've got our, let's come down, let's actually see if we can get it in the middle. Line up the elbow. Okay, and this is going to be 3-4 inch plywood sheathing. Okay. Okay, so everything is described. Everything is pointed out and described. So what has to happen is you have to make it neat and orderly. So all of the little leaders, your elbows have to align one on top of the other. Your text has to align one on top of the other. Your text must be all capital letters, just like these are. Now, text like this, of course, there's nothing really to align it to. So just kind of drawing a similar leader, similar to one of these, similar in length, and then placing it right there. Okay, and here there's really nothing to line this one up to either. So we just draw it right here, kind of again, similar type of leader. Over here we got plenty to line up, so we line up all of our elbows like so. We also kind of get a matching angle on all these leaders. And also our text on the left side, of course, lines up on the right side of the text box. Okay, so that's called right justified. This is called left justified. Okay, so this is all justified on the left. This is all justified on the right. Okay, now we can come back and put our earth back in here. Click on the hatch tool. Let's find earth. Oh, there it is. We already had it selected. So just come over here and click, place it back in here. And as long as you place the hatching after you place the annotation text, then it'll form like a little square around it too, so you can read it. Okay, and let's go ahead and leave it like this. Let's don't put the box around it. It isn't necessary that you do that. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Okay, but I think that will be just fine right there. There is one other symbol that I need to bring to your attention, and it's going to be a break symbol. I think I'm going to leave it off on this one. I'll show you how to do it sometime later, but what you've got right here is okay. So finish this up in major things, getting all your text very beautiful, okay, having it all capitalized, having all your leaders beautiful, okay, that's important, very important.